Right. All right. This is Lei. I'm co-founder and CTO of Fabi AI. So tonight I'm going to just talk about how to build an agent for data analysis. So give me a hands if you think vibe coding is the right way for the future. Vibe coding? All right. Okay. So I assume by default the other one do have doubts. So here I'm going to talk about how to build a reliable agent for data analysis here. All right. To give a sense, so Fabi is essentially an analyst agent, can help you analyze data from anywhere. So compared with code you can just compile to see whether or not it's right. But for data analysis, the worst part is that your SQL queries, your Python code can run, but the numbers, the SQL code and the Python code can run properly, but then the numbers that you get is very different from the actual correct number. So what we have done here is actually we did a lot of context engineering and then make sure the agent can really be able to do some thinking about check with the users whether or not the number is right before actually giving the answer. So here, I'm just going to take a screenshot of our product. You can connect data from anywhere, any applications, any database, data warehouse, including Excel file. Many of our customers, they do love to kind of connect with the Excel file and be able to put some number there. And then, of course, you have a chat interface, and then it would run certain result and be able to save your result into analysis. Here, one thing I want to quote is that all these different code blocks, this all compiles. It could be running some AI summarization, use AI to do some sentiment analysis, and also sending out emails. All this will be compiled into code, because what we found that all this agent is most effective when generate code and run the code in a certain way so that it can be most effective. So everything, even though it renders in the UI, but in the back, it's just like some Python code. All right, this is our agentic flow. The key concept here is that we use code as a major artifact for the agent to generate, and then all these different things just become a tool call. I think I forgot, the previous two speakers mentioned about, right now, everybody realize an agent is just like a LLM in the loop. And we found that that's actually the most effective way. It's essentially you have a user a prompt, and then you have a React agent. Basically, do some planning, reasoning, and then call different tools. So what we have in this tool call is saying that React, that's just a tool call to retrieve relevant context. You might have sub-agent to do different tasks. For example, you might have sub-agent to assess whether the code is secure enough, whether or not it should be executed, whether it's malicious, what are the follow-up questions to ask for clarification. All this is just become a sub-agent for specific tasks, and it can be called by this master agent. Likewise, MCP, dry run the code, and one thing we found that you always want to keep some memory for this particular agent. And it itself is also like a tool call. It's like whether or not the agent want to update its memory about the whole conversation, it becomes a tool call as well. And then once you make a tool call, of course, you want to compress the result, because your LLM, as right now everybody knows, you do want to keep the head of your context always static, so you can use some prompt caching from these different LLM providers. But many of the tool call result, once you get into the result, for the next iteration, you may want to compress in a certain way, and then you send to the LLM and generate the next step or making the next tool calls. So in the end, what it produces is some code. It could be SQL queries, it could be Python code, and we allow our user to just save to the result, and then this becomes repeatable. It could be a schedule run, like a workflow. It could be a publish dashboards. And then here, one thing to call out is that the context is actually really important information to make sure you get the right information, right? So that's why we have this agent memory to keep based on the conversation, because the user actually can provide more context. It needs to update its memory. And then on the other hand, whenever a user uploads some file, like a connected data source, we literally leverage this like agent itself to do some random data exploration, and it would come up with some kind of a context for itself for future analysis. So this is really cool part, is that itself can generate the context for itself. All right. The next one is, like as I mentioned here, the code is actually the major artifact here to interact with the agent. We want to dry run the code. We want to save this code to become more repeatable. And then, of course, one thing for SQL queries, probably okay. But for Python, literally, if you can write Python code, it can do anything, right? So, so to just make it secure, we need to have some sandbox environment. And then each session would have a dedicated sandbox environment. And then, and then we basically provide guardrail like Python. Any Python code has to be run in this sandbox environment. And there's a few more things we actually do in particular tailored towards like data analysis. Because many times, I think this part like feel like data analysis different from programming or like software development. It's like software development, you kind of know what you want to deliver. So you have a requirement, you have a spec. Okay, these are the functionalities I need. You build, you write code. Data analysis is actually, before you look at the data, you actually don't know what you want. So it's more like a step-by-step. Like you plot some chart, put some data, look at the distribution. Oh, there's probably some outlier. Then I need to probably do I come up with some hypothesis and then do the next step. So it's more like stateful. And then in order to do so, we kind of go, the first step is that we run some static analysis of the code, different code blocks, understand how there's dependency between each other. So we have some dependency graph. And then within this sandbox, we track the variable state, saying that one data frame or like one particular variable, which code block actually modifies it. So we keep track the state in that sandbox. And then whenever we need to run some new piece of code, we have some plan kind of execution saying that we detect actually which variable is becoming stale and is upstream based on the dependency graph. Then we try to figure out which piece of code actually needs to rerun. So basically doing minimal recomputation. So in this way, it's like whenever you run your analysis, you make sure you get the correct result based on the dependency. And then it's actually much more reproducible. But on the other hand, you don't have to like recompute everything every time. One step further is we provide this smart caching. There are actually two tiers. Of course, all these variables, you can cache that in memory. And then because we track the variable state, and then so you can know that actually whether this is up to date with a particular piece of code. But then in particular for SQL queries, we even do one step further. Actually, it's a very simple trick, is that if the SQL query by itself takes like, say, a certain time, 10 seconds, and then we basically say, let's cache it into disk so that you don't need to hit your Snowflake or kind of a data warehouse every time when you run some analysis. And then this will be much faster to load just from disk or just from the memory. So with all this, and then this becomes really easy for anybody to run data analysis over Fabric platform. So our targeted like users actually are more like business users, like semi-technical. The cool part about data analysis is that it's very easy for them to vet whether the result is correct or wrong. Is that by just looking at the chart and looking at your revenue numbers, they know that this number is right or wrong, and they immediately can give like the AI agent some context and then quickly iterate and be able to run some data analysis there. So actually 2 days, on Tuesday, we just launched Fabi 2.0, which is like analysis agent to allow you to run analysis over data from anywhere. So do check it out. And then and if you have any more comments, more questions, just talk to me afterwards. Right?